All right, well, Representative-elect George Moraitis, what do you see ahead in Tallahassee this session? Obviously, it's a very different situation with Republicans having the entire state cabinet and two-thirds majorities in the House and the Senate. So what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm looking forward to working on job growth. I think the governor has laid that out as one of his big priorities. I know that the leadership of the House and the Senate and Democrats and Republicans can all agree that we want to definitely address the unemployment in our area. We want to diversify our economy. We want to build on those industries that are that are strong here, like marine and tourism and agriculture.
That's interesting because we've also heard some speculation about social issues, and obviously there are some social conservatives in the Republican Party.
Right.
How much of that is going to be at the forefront compared to jobs and the economy?
Well, I don't know that it will be too much to the forefront compared to jobs and the economy. I mean, I think most of us realize that the primary position is to balance the budget, get the economy moving again. I mean, a lot of us have convictions on both sides, but I think those are things that I would say are not going to be the first priorities because that we are in a terrible economic situation right now.
Do you think other Republicans, I'll say, learn from the mistakes of President Obama and the Democratic Congress when people got the impression, whether it's right or wrong, we could debate that,
right,
but the impression that they were doing all sorts of other things besides paying attention to the jobs in the economy, and that may have contributed to what happened in the election? I mean, do you accept that premise?
Well,
and do you think there was any learning
accept that
from that?
with their majorities, they perhaps thought they could do some things that maybe weren't something that the majority of the Americans wanted. I mean, I think you're correct that when they went for the health care reform, I think that was something that turned out to be a little overreaching, and I think we saw that in the response to the electorate. So yes, I mean, I think they were also trying to get the economy moving again. You could say that the way they went about it with the sort of the massive public spending, wasn't the way to do it. But I'm not going to say they weren't trying to fix the economy, but I think they just started to overreach with some of the health care reform.
Well, I guess the question that I'm trying to get at is, do you take a lesson from that in terms of the kind of laser focus, or what should be the focus,
right,
as far as you're concerned?
Well, we take a lesson from that. Again, like I said, I mean, everybody, people would campaign literally on, the issue is jobs. I do think education is a big issue as well, and I don't think we're overreaching to try to reform education in a positive way to kind of build on the success that we've had. And then I think fighting corruption always needs to be a big emphasis. I mean, whether it's exciting to people or not, I just think it's one of those things we have to get after. So, I would say we don't want to, as a majority, and again, I've said this to you before, we want to work with both parties. I mean, both parties do represent constituencies, and I don't agree that we should just run this as a government of one party.
You're in an interesting situation, obviously a freshman member of the House. You're going into a House where there's a big majority in your party, but you're also a minority in Broward County. First of all, how does that feel, and how do you kind of maneuver those different tugs?
Right, well, I appreciate that. Again, I think as seeing here tonight, I mean, we're all men and women wanting to represent our constituents, and I don't think we should identify ourselves first as a member of a party. We really should be identifying ourselves as a representative of a district, and I do look forward to working with members of the county. I'd like to think that they want to be part of the process too, not just sit off on the sideline, but actually get in there and help us get these jobs bills forward. Help improve the port. Help revitalize our industries in this area. So I look forward to working with them.
Well, what happens to a place like Broward County, which is overwhelmingly Democratic, went for Democrat Alex Sink in the gubernatorial race, when you all were elected in a time of new fiscal restraint, and there isn't as much money around and not as much maybe ability to bring home the bacon kind of things. How does that work then in a place like Broward County, or for Broward County?
I think we are going to have some difficult choices, and I think this is good to have. And I always say this: I mean, people that represent even the minority party do represent a certain voice of constituencies, and I do think it's important to have them at the table to say, here's what we have to do here. What do you want to do? How do you see us getting there? And I don't see it as as a box out where we're just going to say we're just going to have our own meeting and then we'll kind of ask you to rubber stamp what we're doing. No, I'd say come into the meeting. You represent a lot of Broward County. It's a big county. It's a big population center. You have your ideas of what has to happen. We have to be realistic. I mean, we don't have all the money in the world, and so there are going to be some difficult choices.
Representative, thank you.
Thank you.